Hi and welcome to this video tutorial on selling the IBM Storewise V7000 Unified. Today we're going to look at features and functionality, the competitive landscape, and some of the software and web-based tools that are online and available to help you sell the V7000 in competitive situations. So without further ado, let's start looking at the IBM Storewise V7000's functionality. Connectivity is critical for any storage subsystem. With the V7000 it's no different. The V7000 has four primary storage connectivity protocols. Two, which is Fibre Channel and iSCSI at 8 gigs and 1 gig by standard, but upgradable to 10 gigs, are found by default on the base V7000, with CIFS and NFS being included in the Unified. The Unified can be either bought by default from day one as a 6U storage and filer solution, or it can be an upgrade to an existing V7000 installation. One of the things that's important to note about the storage protocols is that they all come in the standard code of the V7000. There's no activation for extra storage protocols, nor is there any licensing based on volumes or users or number of connected concurrent hosts. So there's no nasty surprises further down the line for when you need to add an extra couple of hosts and you end up being whacked with a massive licensing cost on top of purchasing the hosts and everything that comes with that. Scalability is at the core of the V7000. It's one of its biggest USPs and one of the main reasons the companies buy into the V7000 as a real long-term strategic storage strategy. The reason for this is the V7000 has the capability to scale in two different directions, both horizontally and vertically. The V7000 scales like any normal storage subsystem to start with. You buy a single controller, it has 24 disk bays in it. We can then bolt on up to 9 expansion arrays onto that single storage controller, giving us the capability to go up to 240 drives in its 2.5-inch form factor version, which is what you see in front of you. But this isn't the end of the story. The V7000 also has the capability to actually take 4 or 3 other controllers and actually cluster them together. This has the capability to actually get all the controllers to be seen as one pool of storage, giving us not only the capability to bolt on an extra 9 expansion arrays onto each one of those controllers, but also the capability to get up to 64 gigabytes of controller cache and extra Fibre Channel ports, extra iSCSI ports, all that can be seen as a single logical storage subsystem. This gives the capability to be able to, day one, start with one disk and go all the way up to 960 drives, or up to 1.4 petabytes of raw storage, without ever needing to take a downtime window, because it can all be added online in a very highly available manner. This is relatively unique inside of the storage world and is completely unique in the mid-range storage world. This sort of functionality is only actually found on IBM's SAM volume controller product, with the capability to be able to cluster nodes or storage controller nodes together to actually scale out the actual size of the storage controller, rather than having to just buy a bigger single controller. In, for example, the HP EVA world or EMC world, competitively looking at competitive products, we'd actually be looking at a forklift move from an EMC, a CX120 to a CX240 type model, whereby once we'd hit the limitations of one controller, it literally is a take out the controller, throw it away and bring a new one, a forklift upgrade. With a V7000 we can continue to scale up over time without ever needing to throw anything away. So on top of the V7000's capability to scale internally, it also has the capability to encompass external disk subsystems, legacy disk subsystems that may already have in your infrastructure, and you're looking for ways of actually being able to reuse the asset rather than having to effectively rip and replace with a new storage subsystem when it either becomes performance constraint or storage constraint. The V7000 is a perfect solution to be able to do this because it actually brings with it external virtualization capabilities. So as well as being able to have 960 internal disks, it also has the capability to actually take HP, NetApp, Hitachi Data Systems and EMC, just to name 4 vendors, and actually virtualize them underneath itself and have that storage presented to the V7000 as if it was a local disk. This is a great solution should a customer be looking to not have to go to the FD and say that massive investment that we made only 3 years ago, which to us is a no-brainer, it's old, but to a FD or to a managing director of a company, that was a big investment in technology, and instead of having to say, yeah, all that stuff's got to come out and we're going to have to rip and replace it with a completely brand new storage subsystem, they can say, all we're going to do is put this 2U piece of equipment in. That'll give us a complete roadmap for the next 5 years, 10 years, however long they continue to be inside 960 drives, 64 gigabytes of controller cache, and all of the I/O that the V7000 can give them, of not having to rip and replace day one. So we can put the V7000 in, get an instant performance hike, get an instant scalability increase, and over time be able to migrate the data that's currently residing on the HP or the NetApp systems onto the V7000 and end of life the HP systems when they actually either give up the ghost or it becomes a financially or strategically viable solution. So the V7000 has the capability to be automatically intelligent by default. So once again, included in the base controller code, this is not a product that you actually pay any more for when you buy the box. We include a product called Easy Tier. Easy Tier is the capability to be able to self-optimize the V7000 onto a faster tier of disk for a short period of time. What do we mean by this? Well, for instance, hotspots occur on a volume on the V7000. This could be first thing in the morning, everyone logs in and drags down their email from the email server. In the past, that might have caused a lockup on the email server, which has caused a poor end user experience, possible complaints, possible phone calls to the help desk to say not downloading my emails or Exchange is locking up. With the V7000, we have the capability to be able to take that hotspot and migrate it in real time with zero downtime to the host onto a different tier of disk, in this case SSD. We also have the capability to do that with a second volume so that we can actually migrate multiple hotspots onto a single SSD. This gives us the capability to really heavily get as much sort of performance out of our investment in SSD, and to be able to remove the hotspots and lower the overall overhead on the disk storage subsystem, or the V7000 in this case, so that we can optimize and get best use out of our asset. And then once that hotspot has removed itself, the data automatically moves back to where it was, freeing up the space for other hotspots to be migrated. So one of the new features for the V7000 Unified is automatic information lifecycle management. So information lifecycle management is the capability to be able to move data around based upon policies set by the administrator on usage of data, on I/O performance of data, so that we can actually save space on some of the higher tiers of disk, and on spinning disk altogether, by moving data that doesn't meet those policies between all the different tiers of storage. What do we mean by this? For example, data meets expiration policy for SAS disk. SAS disk is quite an expensive tier of disk still, and it would be brilliant if we didn't have to use SAS disks for data that was very, very rarely being used, or had an I/O characteristic that was really, really low, so it really wasn't being used much at all. We could then move that completely automatically onto SATA disk. Obviously SATA disk is a much lower tier of disk, gives us the capability to be able to store much greater volumes of data, but the trade-off is obviously it's a much lower performance disk. But if the data is not being hit that much, really doesn't matter. But then what happens when that data becomes effectively out of date and we have to look to move it off of spinning disk? Because even the oldest data is pointless on spinning disk that's sitting there consuming electricity and costing us money to have inside of an enterprise storage environment. So what we can then do is actually integrate the V7000 with Tivoli Storage Manager, and then actually automatically archive that data off to tape. So this tape data can then be actually physically archived onto tape, taking no electricity at all. Or should we really want to, we can automatically put a policy in place that actually says data is definitely not wanted anymore, it's not been touched for 10 years, should you want to, delete it. These are all technologies that are designed to improve the efficiency of your storage, to automatically be able to self-optimize and to be able to balance the storage in ways that mean that you don't actually need as much storage, or at least as much of the expensive storage.